Within the Wires is brought to you by Progressive. Are you thinking more about how to tighten up your budget these days? Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save over $700 on average, and customers can qualify for an average of 6 discounts when they sign up. A little off your rate each month goes a long way. Get a quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National annual average insurance savings by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2020 and May 2021. Potential savings will vary. Discounts vary and are not available in all states and situations. Hi, it's Jeffrey Craner, and I'm so happy to bring you our 6th season of Within the Wires. Thank you to all our Patreon members. If you want to help us pay our actors, writers, musicians, etc., go to patreon.com/withinthewires. There are bonus episodes there and director's notes and regular Zoom hangouts with me and my co-writer, Janina Matthewson. If you've never listened to Within the Wires before, that's fine. This is just as good a place as any to start. Each season is a self-contained narrative set within the same universe. And if you have listened to our show before, you know we do 10-episode seasons with new episodes every 2 weeks. Well, that has changed. This year, it's still 10 episodes, but new episodes come out every Tuesday, so they'll be out weekly now. Oh, and before we start, I must remind you that Janina and I wrote a novel. It's called You Feel It Just Below the Ribs, and it comes out November 16th. It's a fictional memoir of one scientist's unusual life, including the price she pays to survive and the cost her choices hold for the society she is trying to save. This novel is tied to the Within the Wires podcast, but it is a completely standalone story. Book list called You Feel It Just Below the Ribs, a thought-provoking, haunting story about the sacrifices a society is willing to make to ensure its survival. And Publishers Weekly, in their review, very good review, says readers who enjoy dystopian tales and unreliable narrators will find much to dissect in this haunting, heart-wrenching novel. Y'all, I'm biased, but it's a really good book. We'll have announcements soon about live book release events with special guest moderators and excerpts from the audiobook version. That's all coming soon. But if you're a fan of our work, please pre-order a copy today wherever you get your books. Pre-ordering helps authors more than you can know. There's a link in the show notes for more information. Okay, I have talked long enough. Here, finally, is Season 6, Episode 1.
Okay. It's Monday, October 22nd at 11:34 a.m. Blood pressure 121/76. Resting heart rate 76 beats per minute. Skin tone on the pale side, but that could just be because she hasn't eaten. Grania was a bit reticent. She wouldn't go into detail about how she was feeling, whether she's experiencing nausea or faintness, that kind of thing. She just kept saying, "Fine, I'm fine, stop worrying at me." Which, I guess, is my fault. I mean, not entirely, perhaps. We just met. It's natural she'd take some time to get used to me. And me to her, I suppose. We're not going to be best friends right away. She's been living alone for so long, it must be strange to have someone else in the house. Feeling dependent on a stranger will put me on edge too. I should have been better too. Calmer, more patient, but Let's start over. This is Cliona Byrne, home nurse practitioner, reporting on new patient Grania Lynch. It's now 11:38 a.m. I'm making these voice notes for myself now, when my mind is fresh, so I can transpose them later into a full medical report. So I've really just formally introduced myself to myself. Hi Cliona. I'm Cliona. Nice to meet you. Grania is 87 years old and suffers from rheumatoid arthritis, but all in all healthy. On October 6th, she fell in her kitchen and broke her hip. She spent the last 2 weeks recovering from surgery as an inpatient at University Hospital Kerry before returning home this weekend. I'll be with her to monitor her health as she heals over the next few weeks and to help her around the house as she is currently using a wheelchair. Grania's home has had no modifications to allow for easy movement while she's confined to the chair. A temporary nurse was here over the weekend but had left before I arrived, which... well, I'll get to that. Anyway, he didn't get to do a proper handover for me, but he'd rearranged the ground floor to make room for the wheelchair. Grania can now enter the bathroom, dining room, kitchen and sitting room, which has been converted into a makeshift bedroom for her, as she can't make it upstairs. There's a step down immediately outside the front door, which means Grania can't leave the house without help. Poor woman. She returns home, but the home is different. Upstairs is a guest room, which is where I'm staying. I'm sad Grania can no longer make it to the second level of her own home. It feels eerie, like the house knows there should be someone else there. The house is strange. I mean, it's a pretty standard terrace house when you're inside, but it's the only one remaining. At one point, there were 5, maybe 6 other houses on either side of Grania's, but they're all gone. Just a single rectangular column in an invisible row of homes. I've seen things like this before, a bit like this. On city streets in Dublin and London, one old building left standing from before the reckoning. But they always had new developments around them, one out-of-place column in a row of modern buildings. But I'd never seen a single house alone, perfectly preserved, standing upright in the middle of an empty field of dirt and concrete, like the last sliver of a neatly sliced cake. It was the first thing I said to Grania. I said I thought it was fascinating, but she just stared at me, saying nothing. I don't have a comprehensive medical history for Grania, because with the exception of her most recent trip to the hospital, she hasn't been to see a doctor in decades, apparently not since the end of the Great Reckoning. She seems to have something of an antipathy towards the medical profession, but then that might just be a personal annoyance with me, which, okay, fine. Look, I suppose it was my fault, but I can't really work out how. I don't know what happened. Grania's home's a bit remote, although there used to be a small village here. It was obviously bombed at some point. Her house was the only one left standing, and for some reason she stayed here alone. There's no one else living out here. The nearest town is Ballinroach, which is about 15 miles or so away. I drove in from Galway early and got to the town around 8:30 this morning and stopped there to walk around for a bit. I wanted to get a sense of what was there besides the grocery. There's not much. A couple of pubs, a small health clinic. I'm glad I spotted that. It's good to know ahead of time in case I need their help. Of course, if anything goes too wrong, we'll have to go back to the city, but the clinic will do in a pinch. I should have taken less time, but I wanted to get my bearings, and I'll admit to wanting to ask about Grania too. I've been nervous, I guess. I've only worked in hospitals and care homes since I graduated, and that was only a year ago. This is my first time providing in-home care, and I'm all by myself. Siobhan didn't want to come with me, which is fine. She wouldn't have had much to do other than help me, and she has her own life to live. But I'll be alone. If I need help or support, it'll take time to get here. So I wanted to have some idea of who I was dealing with before I knocked on her door. Probably childish of me, probably immature. Oh God, I sound like an idiot. Anyway, I found a cafe, the Saucy Noggin, and got myself breakfast. Second breakfast, I suppose, since I ate before I left home. But that was before 6 a.m. I can't see it through to lunch. As I entered, I heard a woman's voice say, "Hi, this is Maria." I said, "Hi Maria, I'm Cleena, and I'm wondering if..." And then I saw her. She was on the phone. I clapped my hand to my mouth, and she politely pointed me to sit wherever I liked. When she brought me my food, she sat at my table. She knew I was a visitor, so she drew a little map on my napkin, showing me where the grocer, the butcher, and the petrol station were. She said the petrol station also did repairs, as she noticed one of my taillights was out. I told her that wouldn't be necessary. I'm very good with cars. That's exactly what I said. I'm very good with cars. Snotty like, ugh. She told me where things are. She told me the entire history of the grocer and the butcher and the petrol station, in fact, and the people who worked there. I thought she'd be able to do the same about Grania. I thought Grania might be something of a legend around here. The old woman who was born before the reckoning, who stayed put as the world was destroyed around her. But she wouldn't say anything. When I told her that's why I was here, she just clammed up. I asked her what the house was like, what Grania was like, and all she'd say was, "Colin would know. Colm could tell you. And then she changed the subject. I don't know who Colm is. But the really weird stuff happened after that. I finished eating and got back in my car. I took a loop around the centre of town to pinpoint the shops and things Maria had told me about, and then headed towards the old village, towards Grania's house. The drive should have taken half an hour. Less even. I marked it out on the map. I checked it again after I got here. I left the cafe just before 9. I heard the church bell toll as I drove out of the town, and I arrived at Grania's house no more than half an hour ago. A drive that should have taken 20-30 minutes took 2 hours, and I don't know why. There's no one else on the road, nothing actually causing delays. I drove, and I just didn't arrive. The road stretched on, trees on either side not changing. It's not possible. I don't know how it happened. I can't see how it can have happened. I was more than an hour late because of what? The road was wrong. What is this place?
Hey, Jeffrey Craner here with a podcast recommendation for you. So, in the small town of Fox Lake, Joe Glinowitz was a 30-year veteran of the local police department, and just 1 month from retirement he was found dead, shot in the chest twice at close range. After weeks of searching for his killers, the lead investigator discovered chilling secrets about Joe, the local police department, and the village of Fox Lake, secrets that once uncovered would haunt them for years to come. There are a ton of great true crime shows out there for you to listen to, and I think Over My Dead Body should be one of them. It's fast-paced and compelling. I'm really amazed at the candor they get from the interview subjects, and the production is top-notch. Plus, it dives deeper than just the crime and whodunit into the impact of the people in Fox Lake, which is pretty deep. They told me not to spoil anything, so I will just leave it at that. Follow Over My Dead Body Season 3 Fox Lake on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening now, or you can listen early and ad-free by subscribing to Wondery Plus in the Wondery app. Within the Wires is brought to you by Progressive. Are you thinking more about how to tighten up your budget these days? Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save over $700 on average, and customers can qualify for an average of 6 discounts when they sign up. A little off your rate each month goes a long way. Get a quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National annual average insurance savings by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2020 and May 2021. Potential savings will vary. Discounts vary and are not available in all states and situations.
Monday, October 22nd, 5:30 p.m. Blood pressure 177/72. Resting heart rate 74 beats per minute. Skin tone normal. Grania is still being uncommunicative about her general well-being, just responding with fine to every question I put to her. She has not reported any nausea or faintness, or any particular pain in the injured hip and leg. I made a proper apology to her. Better than this morning, at least, when I was frantic and panicked and just stumbled through some sorries. I tried to explain why I was so late, but I don't think she believed me. Which is fair. I don't really believe me. At least, I'm pretty sure she didn't believe me. She didn't seem surprised at all, which, if she thought it was true, surely she would have been. I can't stop thinking about it. Did I just take a wrong turn and go miles out of the way without realising? But I ended up here. What kind of wrong turn loops back around to the right road? I also don't remember any turns to town. It's a single road from Grania's front door to the centre of town. A wrong turn would have sent me in the opposite direction. I can still hear the church bells almost chiming 9 o'clock after me. It feels like they chimed 9 o'clock over and over again, following me down the road. One of my instructors at the childhood centre told me this story once, about a man who was walking home from a war to his wife and child. Hundreds of years ago this was, when people still believed in the shining folk, like the walls between our world and theirs were thin and inconsistent. So this man, this soldier, is walking home and a mist falls. But it's okay, because the road is straight and he knows it well. He's thinking about his wife, who was pregnant when he left to fight, and the new child that's waiting for him at home. It's been months of marching across the land, of fighting in the mud, of seeing his fellow soldiers fall. The last battle was brutal and only narrowly won, but finally the opposing army was routed and our man was given leave to return home to his farm. He's exhausted, but he's growing happier as he nears the familiar fields and pathways of his village. But the mist has fallen, so all he can see is a couple of feet around him. Enough to keep on the road, but not enough to see what's coming in the distance. And he walks and walks for hours. He should be home by now. He's past the town marker miles back, but home never comes. After what feels like a full day of trudging through the mist, that dank, heavy, iron-grey mist, he begins to hear things around him. Whispering voices, chiming bells. For a time, he ignores them. But then suddenly, a voice seems to whisper right in his ear, so he can almost feel the breath on his cheek, and he turns but sees nothing. "Who's there?" he yells, and he hears mocking laughter all around him. And the man is afraid, but he knows who he is, and he knows the land he walks on. The land that was liberated from the demons and the old gods by Patrick the Snake Slayer. So he stands firm on his own feet and he says aloud, "I am John of Clan Coolian, and God himself walks with me this night. You will let me pass and not trouble this land again." And a silence falls around him. After a moment, the man, John of Clan Coolian, continues walking, and slowly, slowly, the mist begins to lighten around him, until the way is clear, and he sees the gate to his own farm not 6 feet ahead. He goes home and embraces his lovely wife, and cradles his son in his arms, and says nothing of his journey. He never found himself lost in that way again. But every so often, when the mists hung low over the land, he would wonder if those were calls he could hear in the distance, beckoning up, back down the road. Oh, I think I just freaked myself out telling that story. I was never that bothered about it when it was told to us when I was a kid. It's just a fairy story. Our instructor told us dozens of fairy stories. I never really cared about them. But somehow, remembering it just now, it made me kind of shaky. I feel a little lightheaded. What an idiot I'm being, scaring myself with my own stories. I have to make dinner soon. It's not been a good day, but I'm still happy. Very happy. It's a new life here for me. It's exciting. I have a lot to learn, I know, but this house has so much to teach me that history books couldn't. There are photos everywhere, framed ones hanging on the walls. Photos of a family, of Grania's family, all old and sepia-toned. I wonder if she'll tell me what it was like to have a family. To have siblings and parents, grandparents. I read about families. All the old literature talks about mothers and fathers, all that. But I've never met someone who actually grew up with a family. I'm sure she'd be happy to talk to me about it, eventually. It's been years, I assume, since anyone has lived with her. And who knows how long since she's had a neighbour. It's just this old house with its flat concrete sides and miles of empty fields in all directions. I spooked myself again. I keep thinking about the road this morning. The trees going on and on, the road curving slightly the entire drive like a circle. Around the curve, over and over, again and again, around and around and around. Fuck's sake, Lena, pull yourself together. Behaving like a child, rambling on into this recorder. These tapes are medical notes, not a conversation, Lena. God, I wish I could talk to Siobhan. Maybe I should call her. She'd talk me out of this funk, this whatever it is. She'd make me see sense. Wouldn't be fair of me, though, would it? I was the one who left. So? And I left because I wanted this job, And now I have this job and it's going to be fun. I'm already loving it if I'm being honest. And I am. Being honest.
Within the Wires is written by Janina Matthewson and me, Jeffrey Craner, with original music by Mary Epworth. Find more of Mary's music at maryepworth.com. This show was produced by me and directed this season by Janina. The voice of Kleena is Leah Minto. Support our Patreon and get exclusive episodes and video chats with me and Janina. Patreon.com/withinthewires. Also, pre-order our new novel set in the Within the Wires universe. It's called You Feel It Just Below the Ribs, and it's coming November 16th and is available wherever you get your books. Within the Wires is part of Night Vale Presents. Listen to other amazing shows at nightvalepresents.com. Okay, our time is done. It's you time now. Time to stretch out your left anterior deltoid, measure your liver equilibrium, and take your earwax enhancement pills. I'm Jeffrey Craner, and my friend Cecil Baldwin, well, he loves horror movies, and he's helping make scary films more approachable for me, one film at a time, in a random order, and hopefully for you too. If you love horror, you can watch along with us each week, and if you're a bit squeamish, don't worry, we'll tell you what happens. Our show is called Random Number Generator Horror Podcast Number 9, and it is available where the podcasts are.
From PRX.